We're here today at McTears Auction House in Glasgow, where Lisbon Lion Bertie Auld's personal collection of jerseys and programmes will be going up for auction next month. I spoke with McTears in-house historian James Bruce to learn more about Bertie's collection.
We've got two very different shirts here with two very different stories to tell. Now, I'll start, of course, with this one here. It is, of course, an Inter Milan shirt. Originally, it was believed to have been worn by Armando Pichi, believed for a long time. Since then, it's now believed that this shirt wasn't actually worn during the game in Lisbon. However, it comes from the collection of Bertie Auld, and you can't look at it without immediately conjuring up those images of the Lisbon Lions, those lads all born within the 30-mile radius of Parkhead, going over to Lisbon, winning the big cup, the first British team to do so, and bringing it back to Scotland. As I say, that's one of the pinnacles, and with the without being able to say this one was match worn, and indeed us now knowing that there's the belief that it wasn't worn during the 1966-67 campaign, the estimate is £5,000 to £10,000. Here on my left, we've got a very different shirt with a very different story to tell. This is, of course, from the final played in Milan against Feyenoord. Now, Celtic went into that game in 1970, another European Cup final, the second one, a dominant force in Europe, expected to win the competition. They went 1-0 up, and all things looked hunky-dory until two goals from Feyenoord, including one from the player this was sought with after the match, Rinus Israel. A goal from him secured the first ever Dutch European Cup. Now, as I say, this one again, similar to that one, it wasn't worn in the match, that's the belief, and as a result of that, we've estimated this one at £3,000 to £5,000. Here we've got his time at Hibs. After he left Celtic in 1971, he signed for Hibs, and he was not just a player, he started to develop as a trainer with the club. And that was sort of him developing before going into that spell of management. Now, he had some success with the team as well during those 2 years. Indeed, he was part of the team that went to the 1972 Scottish Cup final there, as you see it. They actually beat Rangers in the semi-final 2-0 to get through to that final, which I'm sure Bertie savoured every moment of it. Unfortunately, they weren't as lucky in the 72 final itself, where they came up against Celtic, many of his old Lisbon Lion comrades amongst the team. But indeed, it was the new quality street gang that were coming through, Dixie Deans, Lou Macari, and Celtic won that game 6-1. But it's just another shirt that pinpoints a moment that is not necessarily related to Celtic, but another point in Bertie's career. And indeed, that brings me on to this one here. It's a Scotland shirt from his debut for Scotland, 1959. So one of the oldest shirts amongst the collection, actually the oldest shirt amongst the collection, worn against the Netherlands. Now, whilst Bertie was a player who accrued many accolades over the course of the career, this is one that relates to an accolade that perhaps he didn't want. Now, many of the Lisbon Lions were seriously neglected when we look at their stats within the Scotland squad and the international call-ups. And there's been various reasons, hypotheses for this, but the one relating to Bertie Auld relates to his first game. Now, Scotland won 2-1, but in the 93rd minute, so 3 minutes into injury time, Bertie Auld was involved in a fracas which ended in a red card for himself. Now, that was the first ever red card awarded to a Scotland international player. As I say, an accolade that he probably didn't want to get. Now, what is thought, it's not necessarily true, but what some people have believed is that this was a period, of course, when the clubs would put forward players for international selection. And Bob Kelly, chairman of Celtic at the time, was so embarrassed by this red card that he said, look, I don't want Bertie representing the national team again. Whether that's true or not, Bertie went on to win Europe's ultimate prize, but after 2 more games for Scotland, he would never put on the national jersey in this form again.
If you want to get your hands on a piece of football history, the collection will go under the hammer on October 12th, with the sale starting at 10:30 in honour of the nickname of one of Celtic's favourite sons.